Good morning everyone, today we're going to be talking about the Geometric Labyrinth and why I personally really enjoy it. I know there has been a lot of discussion about the Labyrinth, that it's a watered down version of Divide Quest or Extreme Quest, and it just doesn't seem to live up to a lot of people's expectations. But I personally am really happy with it, mainly because it is another option of a gameplay loop which players can enjoy. But before I go deeper on this subject, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. So first things first, in the B-roll that you are watching right now is the first A rank that I got solo. So I am using the wired lances, and this is one example that I really liked about the Geometric Labyrinth, was that it encouraged me to play other classes and test other weapons. The wired lances is not a very popular weapon. However, since the Geometric Labyrinth is really annoying in the sense that there's a lot of enemies, you might get gigantic small enemies, you might get those pesky enhancer mobs which just make everyone else invulnerable and you have to kill that specific mob, and it's really easy to get swarmed. And this is why I really like the wired lances, because the wired lances adds that extra layer of AoE, as you're gonna see in the B-roll, that I just breezed through this solo relatively easy and still managed to get an A rank. So the Geometric Labyrinth made me realize that, hey, maybe I shouldn't just play the Katana Braver. Since I never really saw a need to play any of the other classes in combat zones, because, well, you know, combat zones is relatively simple content. It's just, there's a bunch of mobs, you go kill all the mobs. And so it doesn't really encourage build diversity. It's all about, okay, how can I kill the mobs most efficiently and most quickly? And thus everyone kind of defaulted to the Force subclass with PP eradication. So you're killing mobs, every time you kill mobs you get PP back, and then you can spam more photon arts, so forth and so on. However, with the Geometric Labyrinth, the gameplay loop is different because there is progression. It gets harder and harder as you can increase the monster's HP as well as damage, as well as the possibility of making them gigantics, starting floors with half HP and having your HP drain down. There's a lot of different modifiers going on, which really forces you to look at your class and see the pros and cons of your personal playstyle and adapt to the situation. And what I really like about the Geometric Labyrinth is it's not 100% random. So there's multiple layouts for each floor. However, if you get a specific layout, the mob spawns are exactly the same. So there is a level of practice and repetition where you can get better and better at a specific floor. So for example, the parkouring floor. A lot of people don't like the parkour floor because they get lost really easily there and they don't know where all 5 cubes are. However, as you play that floor more and more, you get better at it because you understand where the cubes are, and thus you can route a path to do that specific layout faster and faster. And this is what I really enjoy because it's not 100% pure random. You might get different layouts on each floor. However, each layout has the same mob spawns. The only difference is some of them might be enhanced enemies or gigantics and stuff like that, which is the system's way of just throwing a wrench into your plans to make things a little bit unpredictable, a little bit more difficult. But overall, I am really enjoying the Labyrinth. But back to the point that I was saying at the very beginning of the video. So this is a different game mode which has its own gameplay loop. So if we step back and look objectively at New Genesis right now, how many different game modes are there? So there's the open world, which includes veteran hunting as well as deafness 3 farm. And of course, you know, this also applies to spirit 3 farm or whatever capsule farm that you want to do in the open world in the 32-man rooms. That is one type of game mode. Next up is combat zones, which is an 8-player experience. You just go into a room, all these mobs spawn, you kill the E's and the T's, you get PSE bursts and a lot of mobs spawn, and you kill them all. So that is the second game mode. Your third game mode is of course the Alio and Retem Devastators, also known as the Purple Triggers. So this is 4-man content. You go in, you kill all these gigantics, you get rewarded a bunch of loot, as well as the off chance of getting some cosmetic items. So these were the original 3 different gameplay loops that we had. However, one of these gameplay modes forced you to do combat zones, and that is of course the Alio and Retem Devastators. You needed purple triggers in order to play this content, and the only way to get purple triggers was in combat zones, so you were forced to do the combat zone content or spend your precious Meseta to buy these triggers in order to do content that you actually wanted to do. So when the Geometric Labyrinth was released and they announced that there was no entry cost required, I believe Sega took our feedback and were like, okay, maybe we shouldn't force players to do content that they don't like in order to gain access to the fun content. And thus, they're like, you know what? Geometric Labyrinth, you want to do it, there's no entry fee, you can do it whenever you want with 1 person, 2 people, 3 people, or 4 people, and there is no penalty. And thus I believe Sega is moving in the right direction. We just need more gameplay types in order to keep everyone busy, in order to cater to more players. Because as we know, the combat zone gameplay cycle was fun in the beginning, but doing it over and over and over, even myself will get burnt out. So they need more options or more flavors so people can do different type of activities and not get bored. A great example of this would be Lost Ark. When Lost Ark originally released, a lot of people were very into the game for at least 1 to 2 months because they had a lot of things to do and there were a lot of different gameplay options. So there was one gameplay loop that I really enjoyed in Lost Ark, and that was the Monster Hunter ripoff type of thing. You go into an open field with your party and you need to find the monster or the boss. And once you find it, you gotta fight it, and it's got multiple phases. And when you defeat the massive boss, you get rewarded amply. I feel like NGS could benefit by adding that type of gameplay style. You know, something similar to Monster Hunter where you can move around in the open world to find specific boss monsters, which you can work together with your team and take them down. I know veterans are sort of like that, but veterans spawn in the same place every single time and they're not exactly a challenge. I would like to see something similar to the Geometric Labyrinth where it's challenging content but in the open world where you can work with multiple people. Because I know my boy Thrift Shopping really enjoys open world content. For me personally, I'm fine with the instant stuff. I'm fine with the 4-player Alio and Retem Devastators as well as the Geometric Pyramid because I'm just used to that type of content where it's like smaller groups, you know, we're in voice chat, it's a bunch of good friends, we're just having a good time grinding away. However, I know a lot of people came to NGS because it is an open world. That was like one of their main marketing points where it's like, look at this, it's amazing, it's so much better than the base game because it's open world, there's so much stuff to do. But they really need to work on more features and more things to do in the open world. Something I'd like to see in the future would be some sort of life skilling. So in Black Desert Online, for example, you have 3 main components. You have life skilling, which is you go off in the open world, you do gathering, you do fishing, you do farming. You know, it's the really chill and relaxing content. However, the reason why a lot of people do life skilling in Black Desert Online is because you can make a lot of money. And this is something that NGS needs to take note of, is a lot of people are motivated to do things in order to make Meseta because they know that if I have Meseta, I can buy fashion, I can buy gear, I can buy whatever I want. So what I would suggest for Sega is if you are planning to implement any sort of life skilling, for example, fishing or cooking or hunting, you know, you need to think about the economy as well. Maybe you need a specific level of cooking in order to cook a special dish which gives even greater buffs, and you can sell this dish on the market. Then that would incentivize people to do this type of content. But in order to cook a specific dish, maybe you need a high level of gathering or farming or fishing in order to gather the ingredients to make that specific dish. Then you have some sort of gameplay loop where people are encouraged to do life skilling because they're like, okay, we know the min-maxers want this specific food because they want to min-max, they want to get the best of the best so that they can do the hardest content available in the game. So that is something that Sega could consider. However, BDO also has 2 more game modes. They have PvE and PvP. So in PSO2, I don't think PvP should be a thing. I really don't feel like PSO2 should look into PvP that much. The reason I say this is because we had PvP in the base game, and unfortunately it was not very popular. The way that PvP worked in the base game was you went in with a level 1 character, you were stripped of all your gear, all your levels, and what class you played was determined on what weapon you picked up in the arena. If you want the katana, you're automatically a braver. If you pick the twin machine guns, you become a gunner. And it wasn't very popular because a lot of people didn't like the idea of like, oh, none of my progress carried into PvP. However, what I want to bring to everyone's attention is of course the PvE aspect, where of course we have combat zones right now, which is very similar to just like grinding in general in Black Desert. However, what Black Desert has on top of that is we have the Dark Rifts. So that is a weekly boss that spawns in the open world. Now in Black Desert, it is solo content. However, maybe in PSO2 they could take that inspiration and put their own twist onto it, where people work together in order to get ample rewards every single week. That would also incentivize more and more people to actually do more stuff in the open world. Could you imagine when dailies reset? Other than just doing your daily objectives, there's special mobs that you need to hunt down, or you need to do specific things in a specific order to spawn a very special boss in order to take it down. I think that could be something they could look at, something that would be a little bit more interesting. Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!
What can I say except you're welcome for the heals, the boosts, the